Electrocast.
The restaurant business is a rearview mirror business. You operate for a month and then you turn around and say, did we make money last month? And what I found out when I had 6 Asian noodle restaurants is I wanted to know every day where we were. And I was cycling one morning, I was listening. And in Steve Jobs' book, he made a comment that if you can identify a problem and solve that problem, you have an opportunity. And that's what gave me the idea to do FobeSoft.
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, sharing our methods and strategies for success. Join in on our conversations with business owners as we highlight their triumphs and detail how they overcame the challenges they faced while continuing to grow and scale their business. It's time to think life, think success, and think business with your host, Tyler Martin.
Hey there, welcome back. Today we chat with Geordy Murphy, an inspiring restaurateur turned tech entrepreneur. He'll share his journey from running top restaurants to creating FobeSoft, a powerful financial tool for the food industry. Hey, Geordy, welcome to the Think Business with Tyler podcast show. How is it going?
Good. How are you doing today, Tyler?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. Former Californian, now over on the opposite side of the country in Florida.
Yes. On the east coast of Florida, in a place called Ponte Vedra Beach. It's the home of the PGA Tour, is where a lot of people know it.
Well, hopefully it's also the home of avoiding hurricanes too.
Yes, we're on the east coast, so we avoid those.
Yeah, lucky you. Yeah. Hey, so Geordy, what I'd love to start out with is I'd love to learn a little bit about what you're doing professionally. And then maybe if you have something personal that isn't commonly known, I'd love for you to share that too.
Sure. I, as you mentioned, was in Northern California. I owned and operated restaurants there for almost 18 years. For people out in the Bay Area, I did Colettos for the Kimpton Group. I built Post Trio with Wolfgang Puck. I had a chain of Asian noodle restaurants called Long Life Noodle Company. And I had my own restaurant called Geordy's, which in 94 was top 10 best new restaurants in the country by Esquire, Bon Appetit, Food and Wine, New York Times, et cetera. And that's what kind of got me to the business that I'm in today, FobeSoft, food and beverage software. I'm a cyclist and a swimmer. And I was riding my bike one morning, and the restaurant business is a rearview mirror business. You operate for a month and then you turn around and say, did we make money last month? And what I found out when I had 6 Asian noodle restaurants is I wanted to know every day where we were. So, fast forward, sold those, moved back to Florida. And I was cycling one morning, I listened to books with one ear in, not both, so I can hear the cars. And in Steve Jobs' book, he made a comment that if you can identify a problem and solve that problem, you have an opportunity. And that's what gave me the idea to do FobeSoft, because like I said, food and beverage software, because I had so many restaurant friends in the Bay Area that would call me and say, would you look at my P&L? I'm going to open a restaurant. Would you do a budget for me, et cetera? So when I was cycling that morning, I said, I'm just going to do it. So I went into my office that day and I started making phone calls, and I found a guy that was a programmer, and he has a ton of people that work for him. And we built it and we put it out there and started getting some customers. And then the pandemic hit and we lost them all. But then I got some angel funding, and now we are, right after the pandemic, and we're pretty much off to the races now. Cool. It's a neat program.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
And we're pretty much off to the races now. It's a neat program.
Yeah, sounds interesting. I definitely want to dive more into that. Before I do that, how about on the personal side? You could share a little bit. So you're cycling, swimming, anything else on the personal side you want to share?
No, well, I enjoyed my time in the Bay Area so much, in San Francisco. I lived right in the heart of the city. I met my wife there.
Oh, wow.
And she had visited where I grew up in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. And we decided we were going to have kids. This is just a playground for kids. We've got the ocean a quarter mile that way. There's tons of golf. There's outdoors activities. So we decided we were going to raise our kids here. And right now I have one, my son is a junior at the University of Florida, and my daughter is a junior at Pace University in Manhattan. So, and, Nance and I are in Ponte Vedra, and we take the dogs out. But that's
awesome.
it. I mean, my passion is cycling and swimming.
That's awesome. So you were kind enough before we started, you shared that you've been to multiple Super Bowls and World Series. So I guess my question to you on this one would be, what is the energy level? Because I've never been to a big game, that big of a game. What is the energy level like from a regular football game or a baseball game versus like a World Series game or a Super Bowl? Like what's that intensity like when you're actually experiencing it?
The intensity so for Super Bowls, I think it might not be quite as much because the NFL runs, they actually designate who gets the tickets or whatever, but World Series, definitely. But I will say this, going to an NCAA Final Four or round of 16, that is insanity. I remember when I went to Oakland for the round of 16, I forget what year it was, for the NCAA, basketball for the March Madness. And that was one of the most electrifying sporting events I've ever been to. It's absolute, because it's all college kids and it's all, different schools. It was crazy.
It makes you wonder, though, like some of these college games get, 90,000 people every week on a Saturday. It must be crazy. In fact, you bring back memories. I've been to San Jose Arena a couple times. I think it's the 32 March Madness top 32 teams, if I'm remembering correctly. And you're right. The energy is like a whole nother level. It's like not anything I had ever experienced in a pro level game, at least.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting.
They're a lot of fun. Well, and down here, I live in the heart of the SEC. So we've got Gainesville, University of Florida, Alabama, Georgia. It's pretty crazy down here.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. Hey, I want to talk about, before we get to FobeSoft, because, I've got a fractional CFO background. Obviously, data points and running your business, understanding your numbers is a huge thing to me. So I don't want to gloss over. I want to talk about FobeSoft and just your thoughts about developing it, and how you even implement it to get this real-time data or this more immediate data. But before I do, I want to talk about Long Life Noodles. I think you said you had multiple restaurants of those. What was it like? Because that's kind of like, what was the biggest challenge scaling a restaurant like that? Because that's kind of a niche restaurant. Was that a successful business? Were there any challenges along scaling them? Was it kind of take me through that journey a little bit?
Well, it was successful, but one of the interesting things about the business is like, a lot of things in the restaurant business, it's location. We had a unit that was in the Sony Metreon. I don't know if you remember that,
Sure.
south of Market.
Yeah.
1,650 square feet. We did $2.2 million in revenue.
Wow.
Which was extremely profitable. But then we had one in Corte Madera that was probably 2,000 square feet or 2,200 square feet. And we did like 800,000 in revenue. So when you're trying to balance the two of those, because of, from your labor to your food costs to your rent to see your other expenses or whatever, where the Sony Metreon was like turning on the spigot, and then Corte Madera was like, got to keep your eye on every single little thing, to try to make a little money versus, losing a little money. And that's one of the ideas that brought me to FobeSoft. But, there's picking the location, because a concept like that too. I have a friend over the years that's in the restaurant business. And he made a comment one time that everybody is out there looking for the same 2,500 square feet. And it's the same 2,500 square feet with foot traffic, maybe office traffic, weekend business. It's hard to find all those combinations. And that's what you really need, because you basically, for lunch and dinner, you've got 14 periods of business a week. And you want to try to capture all of those. Like I heard the other day, talking to a restaurateur, that some of these sandwich shops, like a Jimmy John's or a Jersey Mike's, they put them in places for their main business is Monday through Friday at lunch. They hardly do anything on the weekends, and you're paying rent the whole time. Hopefully you can capitalize on that, the shorter periods of business. But that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely, in my neighborhood, I'd say Santa Clara, you see, when workers are at the office, the places are just buzzing with business. When it's the weekend or the end of the work shift, they're ghost towns. I mean, there's just nobody around there. And, one thing that's interesting about the restaurant business, and tell me, I'm saying this from a consumer perspective, so feel free to tell me, hey, I'm off base. But one thing that I also often kind of notice is restaurants are so cyclical in the sense that, people love, it's a good restaurant they love, but it kind of wears it has kind of has a lifespan. Like you get to a point where it kind of gets boring after a while. And it seems like whether that be 3 to 5 years or whatever. What's your thoughts around that? Is my perspective off?
No, I think that's a very good point. I used to say that the bar business 15, 20 years ago was a very fickle business. You open a new bar and it's the hot spot. Everybody's in there, going crazy till 2:00 in the morning. And 8 months later, a new bar down the street opens up. All of a sudden, all the business has moved over there. It seems like there's a finite amount of business. And then this place is hot until the next new place opens. Now, the restaurant business never used to be like that. If you opened a restaurant, you cultivate a clientele, you learn, who your customers are. You start knowing them by name, etc. And you can cultivate a clientele. But now it's almost turned into the bar business. What's the next best thing? And today with, there's so many different types of cuisine today that somebody puts a new style or puts a twist on something and everybody wants to try it out. So it has gotten harder to keep your business, but I think, good food, good service, and you should do it, priced well, and you should still do okay.
Yeah. What do you attribute to you having so much success? I mean, it sounds like you had multiple different types of restaurants. Is it all just about focusing on knowing quickly that location was paramount? Was it hiring the right people? Like, what do you attribute that success to?
Well, I think it's a combination of the location. It's a combination of having a good product and treating people correctly. I mean, you want to try to build, I would say, friendships. I mean, in the Bay Area, I knew so many people in the city, and I would take care of them. And the location, like we said, is paramount. But it's food and service, and it's, there's situations out there where you get like, a very talented chef or what have you. And they might have a dish that's like, people are going to love it. Well, then they might not. And the person has to realize that, you can't educate the public. You got to kind of, you can slowly show them new things or whatever, but people like what they like.
Right, right.
And that's where you have to make it consistent and continue to serve, that product.
Were you like boots on the ground with all your restaurants? I mean, were you literally like sitting there creating the dishes and deciding the direction? I mean, how much were you getting involved in?
I was boots on the ground, like general manager, director of operations for Colettos and Post Trio with Wolfgang. And then for all the long life noodles, I was behind in the kitchen for the first 30 days, every lunch, every dinner, for the first 30 days, and saw every single dish go out.
Wow.
And that was, I learned that from another guy that worked for, guys like Alain Ducasse and things like that. The first 30 days, you want to make sure that, every single thing is the way you want it to be. And then, when you can do that, the team knows the way they're producing things. Everybody knows the way you want it. And you can't back off. You might be able to take a day off. But yeah, I mean, that was the fun part of the business, was being boots on the ground. As building them and designing them and things like that were fun also.
Yeah. I love you. You obviously have a passion for what you do. It's a tough business. I mean, you talk about service. I mean, that's hard. I mean, it's hard to please people. And so I applaud you because you obviously must be really good at it, and you're obviously very good at working with people and connecting with people, because it's tough. I mean, no matter, and I think honestly, the higher scale of the restaurant, the higher the expectation is of people too. That's even harder to please them. I mean, would you agree with that generally, or do you think I'm overemphasizing it?
100%, 100%. Especially, and now today, with the Instagram and all that. I mean, everybody can see. They're more educated today, almost to a fault.
Yeah.
Because, you have to look at the industry, and these people are in there busting their hump, 50, 60 hours, especially the guys in the back, producing the food and the chef, or, creating this stuff. And for somebody to, like a Yelper or whatever, because they were late on their reservation, wants to bash these guys, it doesn't seem fair. Well, it's not fair.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you have to give people a chance.
And to your point, like some things is even more unfair is like you have an employee that does something that's rogue in the public profile, and then you got a million people writing Yelp reviews about, you're a communist or you're Nazi or who knows what they're saying. And it's like, all your hard work could go down the drain. There was recently in the news, there's a young lady, I think the daughter had done something. I can't remember what she did. And everybody found out that the mother was the owner of some type of, I don't know if it was a restaurant or a bagel shop, but everybody started basically destroying the business overnight because of the behavior of someone that isn't even affiliated with the restaurant.
Well, it just closed a whole group of sushi bars up in.
Did they?
Yeah, I think it was Seattle or Portland. An influencer. I mean, if he saw like a worm in a piece of sushi or something like that, and put it out there, within a week, food, 5 or 6 of them gone.
Wow. You think all your hard work and effort. I mean,
oh my gosh. Well, and it's not like that happened in every one of them.
Right.
But it's gotten more difficult too, because, the price of labor has gone up. The price of food has gone up. So, and you're working with finite margins. So it's not like, there's more. I mean, that just keeps cutting into the bottom line. Hopefully you're making a bottom. And that's where the software that I've designed that we have now really helps people.
Okay, I got one more question for you before we get into FobeSoft.
Go for it.
I want to find out, is there anything that you would like a do-over on in terms of your entrepreneurial career? Like you go, oh man, that was a bad decision. Not necessarily location, because I think that's kind of hard sometimes, but anything else that stands out? Oh, I wish I wouldn't have hired that person. Oh, I wish I would have not waited too late. Anything that stands out for you that you maybe go, hey, I wish I would have done differently?
Well, I think I had a restaurant one time where and this is here again, one of the reasons I came up with what I did. I didn't have maybe a large enough network to fall back on, for advice. I mean, I was kind of headstrong and thought I knew everything, like a lot of young entrepreneurs are. But having more of a network or a sounding board that you could turn around and say, hey, this has happened. You got any ideas? Because if you don't have that, you're waking up every morning looking at the mirror saying, you're the only one. And if you can't come up with, a solution, that's what makes it more difficult. So, for advice to anybody, I would say to have a network of knowledgeable people that know things about that industry that you can turn around and bounce stuff off of. And don't necessarily think you know everything. I mean, I had a hard head and thought I knew a lot. And then when it was crunch time at one certain point in my career, I had nowhere to go. So, but yeah, that would be my advice. So
that's a good one. Okay, great one. I appreciate you sharing that. Masterminds too. I mean, if it's the right mastermind, you got to be careful. But if it's the right one, that's a great way to have peer feedback and experience things that get experiences of others that maybe you haven't experienced. That's great feedback. Okay, let's talk about FobeSoft. I'm really dying to talk about this because I obviously love numbers. So first tell me what FobeSoft does for restaurants.
Okay, here's what we do. Since I mentioned that the restaurant business is a rearview mirror business.
Yep.
You operate for a month and then you have to wait for your bookkeeper, accountant, CPA or whatever to get your numbers, your P&L once the month is closed.
Yep.
What we've done at FobeSoft is we have devised a way to give you a profit and loss statement every single day that runs month to date next to a budget. And it's either red or green. So if it turns red, we have a bullion that pops up that tells you what you can do to lower your food costs, labor costs, any of your controllables. Something else we've done is we've broken it into 4 different parts. So of course you have your sales, then you have your cost of goods, your labor, your controllables, and your non-controllables. So a lot of restaurants out there have one line item after your cost of goods and your labor that says supplies. We've broken that into 10 or 12 categories that can move the needle. So what we've done is, like I mentioned, having a sounding board. When a person's in the 4 walls of a restaurant and they have issues, the whole thing can be overwhelming. But if you break it into the 4 parts, we can find a point in your cost of goods. We can find a point in your labor. We can find a point in your controllables. and a half a point to a point in your non-control. So if you're making 10% profit, all of a sudden you're making 14% profit.
Huge.
That's a 40% increase. Even if we only found a half a point in each one, that's still 2 points. That's 20% increase of what you're doing. And now one of the main things we've done with it is initially when I built it, I had financed it myself and I didn't have money for all the bells and whistles. But once we got a little angel funding, now we've made the program almost completely seamless. So we import from the point of sale system, food, beer, wine, liquor, merchandise. We import the front of the house and back of the house labor because we build the salaries in behind it. We put your workman's comp and your payroll taxes in there. So you're getting a true labor figure every day. And then what we've done is we have EDI connections with all the major suppliers, Cisco, US Foods, Cheney Brothers, Benny, Cheat. So when the invoice hits the restaurant, we get the invoice at the same time. And through Microsoft Azure and our enhancements, we have like an AI piece that reads the invoice and parses it to the right cell in FobeSoft. So your food's going to food and it goes either fish, poultry, meat, produce, grocery, or dairy. And then your kitchen supplies go to kitchen supplies. Your restaurant supplies go to restaurant supplies. Our AI piece we built is 97% accurate. And if you're not using one of the big suppliers, all you have to do is take a picture of the invoice. And we've built an app with on your phone. You take a picture of it, uploads it to the cloud. Same AI piece parses it to the cell. So what's happened now is we're giving restaurants a profit and loss statement every single day that runs next to a budget month to date, and they barely have to touch anything. Once we hook up the connections, and now what we've just done, we're going to launch it this week or in the next 2 weeks. We're going to start sending reports once a week to all these restaurants. In the morning, there'll be a notification. Hey, this is where your sales were. This is where your purchases were this week. This is where, this invoice didn't read quite correct. So let's put it back in. And it's really helped the people that we've done. Plus, what we do when we sign somebody up is we have a meeting with them to say, if they have numbers, we look at their numbers and then we go off some of those. But we just had a woman that we signed up, great sous chef, turned into a tremendous chef. Some people put her in business, but she, not to her fault, she had never had accounting. She didn't understand the finance of the restaurant. The very first meeting, we saved her $37,000. So, she was like, she loves us. And so we have a ton of clients. We have one a pizza guy in Newport Beach, California, that just called us on Monday. It said, you've done such a great job with my one pizza restaurant. I need to put the other pizza restaurant on. And that's rewarding. That makes me feel good.
If you're a business owner feeling stuck in your business, overwhelmed, responsible for everything that happens, and working long hours, Tyler helps his clients develop processes, hire high-performing team members, and better understand their financial metrics and numbers to allow for a more predictable, less hands-on business. To schedule a free, no-pressure consultation, head to thinktyler.com and click the meeting button. Tyler would love to see if he can help you work on your business, not in your business. Schedule a consultation today at thinktyler.com. Think life, think success, think business.
They just called us on Monday. It said, you've done such a great job with my one pizza restaurant. I need to put the other pizza restaurant on.
That actually brings up one of my questions. So I have a couple questions. One is this real-time P&L. How is it? So let's say Cisco, you order a bunch of stuff and the stuff maybe is for the whole week. Is there some type of modifier we're putting in the system that says, every time we sell this item, we're using 1/5 or not 1/5, but one piece of Cisco's order that we just placed? Or how's it doing that? So it's coming up with some type of daily P&L.
There's two things. One, for that, we run off purchases.
Okay.
Because today, your cost of goods run off your purchases. Because there's very few people don't have freezers in restaurants anymore. Hardly. You can get orders all the time.
Okay.
So if you, as you know, from your beginning inventory plus your purchases minus your ending inventory gives you your cost of goods.
Yeah.
Well, if your inventory stays constant, which most restaurants do these days, your purchases are going to be your cost of goods.
Got it.
And something else we've done to make this happen is we had to break some accounting practice. So what we, well,
At least you're honest.
you're an accountant. But if you think about it, then that's one of the reasons that the restaurants wait for their profit and loss statement. What's the electric bill? What's the gas? What's the water? Where's my rent? What we do is when we build the budget, we put what we call constant recurring expenses in. So that populates the cell every day, and then it runs month to day. So when you're on the 10th of the month, you have 1/3 of your electric, 1/3 of your gas, 1/3 of your water, 1/3 of your rent. So bottom line exactly where you're going to be. And as long as you're consistent with it, with those, that we put in, which we are, you're going to know at the end of the month, that's going to be your rent number. That's pretty much what your gas, electric. I mean, those are the ones that aren't, pinpoint on the dollars and cents, but you're off, $10, $5, but it gives someone a clear picture. And it also gives them actionable items where, say it is the 10th, and they can look down there and say, wow, we're way over in our dish machine chemicals. Well, you call the guy up from Ecolab or AutoClore and say, can you come in and calibrate my machine? You're probably going through too much product. And there's things like that we have in there, suggestions that a lot of people might not know. Linen and laundry is a classic. If you bring your linen and laundry in and it just sits there, people are going to grab rags and aprons all day long. You give them 2 rags and an apron at the beginning of the shift, that's all they're going to use.
So true. Okay, I got it. And I think it's elegant that you use some and no different than a forecast where you kind of plug in some numbers that are going to be reasonably accurate to give. I mean, that's good enough for the purposes of looking at how your performance was for a particular night or a period of time. What do you do in the case? So I have a client, they've got 4 restaurants. They buy, a lot of their goods are commingled, frankly. So, they make one purchase of, let's say, paper goods. That's for all the stores. How does the system handle something like that? Or what do you do?
All you do is write a paper invoice to each 4 stores.
Got it.
So you can, we try to keep away from having receivables, from other restaurants, but we can set up a commissary in one of our, it's basically another system. And then this system can invoice, if it's paper goods or we have a restaurant that buys, they have, I think, 3 or 4 locations, and they buy olive oil in a 50-gallon jug. Because they get such a good deal on it. So, it comes in and we know that, each restaurant gets X amount. So in the case of someone that has 3 or 4 restaurants, we can put them all up on one screen together so they can see every day how all of them are performing, or they can look at it from the 30,000 foot view and see what they look like all together.
Got it.
So if there's a labor problem, they can go in and go boom, boom, boom. Oh, this one has the labor problem, and they know where to attack it.
Yeah. So your system does have built-in some type of integration where if they have multiple restaurants, it's not like one individual license for each restaurant. Somehow they
Well, it is, but we can put it in what we refer to as the boss view. One dashboard, one URL. They can go in and bring them all up.
Yeah, that was poor terminology. You obviously license them per restaurant, but I mean, they kind of can consolidate into one.
Exactly.
Viewpoint. Got it. Okay, cool. Awesome. Wow, that sounds interesting. So what are you finding your biggest challenges in terms of getting market adoption for your software? Like, what are the biggest objections sometimes you get?
Well, I think that our biggest issue is exposure. Trying to get, because we close 35 to 40% of the demos we do. There's not a person since we started this 5 years ago that hasn't seen the opportunity with it, whether they sign up or not. But it's just getting in front of the decision maker to see it. Everybody sees the value in it. Because if you think about it, there's nothing out there today on the market that's giving these people this information on a daily basis. So for us, it's exposure. And we have right now, we've white labeled it for Cisco Foods. Their version is Proactive PANDL, proactivepnl.com. And we are in a couple of markets with them. So it's starting to take off from that standpoint because they see the value in it and they see the way it can help their customers.
Interesting. Very cool. In terms of like, when you use that example of the person that saved $37,000, can you kind of take me through that? Because I think it's easy to gloss over. I think sometimes as business owners, now restaurant people, I think get this more because food cost and things. I recently, sorry, this is a little tangent. A buddy of mine owns a restaurant and we play pickleball together. And one day, I was like, hey man, how's the restaurant business doing? Oh my God. He's like, food costs keep going up. Everything keep going up. I don't even know if I'm making any money. And the guy was just like defeated because, he's trying to manage his business and he's feeling like all the costs are going up and there's only so much he can charge for his food. So I guess my question would be that $37,000 person, where was that savings at? Was it in one specific line item? Where do you mostly see those points drop when you add the software?
That was mainly credit card fees.
Ah, wow.
Someone came in with a point of sale system, and because the point of sale systems today they're basically in the credit card business.
Sure.
That's why there's such a competitive
100%. And lending business, by the way. Now they're doing lend. They're charging more fees and hiding them in their lending, which is a whole different story.
I was shocked a year and a half ago. I wonder what the top 5 point of sale systems are. So I Googled it and it came up with the top 50 point of sale systems. I was like, oh my God. So what happened was, it's here again, it's not necessarily understanding it. And a person went in, a salesperson, and said, hey, we'll give you the system for blah, blah, blah. We'll only charge you, like 3.9 or whatever on your credit card business, where you can get it for 2.2. So we saved her like 1.5 points. And if you look at it like that, then it was a big chunk. But there's other ways. Like, for instance, in our system, if it's Monday and you're doing your schedule, you have X amount of money to spend through the following Sunday. And that's how you do your schedule. And people don't understand that, if you save an hour a day in the front of the house and an hour a day in the back of the house, you're going to save like $16,000 to $18,000 a year. Because now with a $15, $16, $17, minimum wage, and then you put the payroll taxes on top of that times 365 days, that's a huge saving. So when someone's closing the restaurant at the end of the night and there's 2 or 3 people hanging around having their shift break while they're on the clock,
tick, tick.
Things like that. There's numerous. We have a tremendous amount of what we refer to as the fixes in each category. And it's just suggestions. Like I mentioned earlier, calibrating the dish machine, making sure you're only, putting out the amount of soap per wash that's supposed to go out. And it's like, ask your friend that has the restaurant. It's a business of pennies and they're flying out all over the place. And, another thing is, like you mentioned, well, the food cost is going up. Well, if you do a theoretical food cost and then you know what each item costs on your menu, and then you take it times the amount of items sold for that month. So theoretical cost of goods should be this. Well, if you look on that report and you're selling, say, 1,250 calamari because everybody likes it, all you have to do is maybe raise that by 50 cents, which nobody's going to notice. You don't have to raise every price on the menu. People go, oh gosh, they raised all their prices. You raise 1 or 2, it's not noticed, and all of a sudden your food cost has dropped a point. I mean, there's a bunch of different things to do to look at it that way.
So with the software, it sounds like, do you guys actually do some consulting that's tied in with the software? Is that part of the magic, the secret sauce, if you will?
We call it, our whole support team, we have 11 on our support team now. Every single person is the next director of operations, a general manager of a restaurant, understands numbers. And they've seen so many profit and loss statements now. I mean, if it's a barbecue restaurant, we know it has a guy that he has 30 of them, so he's getting great costs. So we know what those costs should be. And, I go back to when you asked me the question earlier about, something that I regret. When I started this, I thought, I'd like to be the KPMG of restaurants. Somebody that, if there's an issue, somebody can call up and go, here's my issue. What do you think I should do? And that's what our support team does. And we have restaurants that call people on our support team once a week. Hey, would you go over this with me? What do you think I should do here? And they're all great. I mean, they're super nice, the whole support team, and they understand the business. Plus, they see it every day. We see so many different restaurants, so many different, P&L that it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it puts you in a really competitive position. Sounds like a great tool. I'd love, maybe someday you can give me a demo. I'd love to see just how it actually interacts. And, just how seamless. I mean, those EDI interface sounds awesome. Sounds like you've got a lot of things that bring in the data. On the payroll side, is that limited to certain payroll services, or how does that payroll data get in?
Well, we were integrated with companies like Seven Shifts, and then a lot of the point of sale systems
Okay.
are doing payroll. So we're getting the information there. Now, if you're on an antiquated point of sale system or don't have a service like that, we have what we refer to as a FobeSoft assistant. So when you close at the end of the night, one of our FobeSoft on our different support team goes in and pulls that information out, puts it into FobeSoft. So when you come in the next morning, all your information is there. And something else that's pretty cool is with our invoice reading, we've processed over $400 million worth of invoices so far. And we just started this probably 16 or 18 months ago, which is pretty crazy. And it's less than 24 hours. So if you put an invoice in, if you literally could write on a napkin 10 pounds of ahi tuna at $12 a pound, $120, and take a picture of it, the next morning when you come in, that's going to be in your food cost and your fish category. So it's pretty crazy.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
And take a picture of it. The next morning when you come in, that's going to be in your food cost and your fish category. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting. I want to just emphasize when we talk about a half point, whether it be off GP or net profit or individual cost line items, that's kind of my mantra too. I mean, whether it's restaurant, any business, those half points of percentage really add up. I mean, they're not chump change. I mean, they make a big difference in the end result.
Well, yeah, the key is you want to take little bites.
Yeah.
You can't, like someone's like, oh, my food. Well, so hold on here. Let's look at the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because when you take a little bite, it doesn't affect it as much, but from a financial standpoint, it affects it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at, like right now, I just saw on Netflix probably 2 weeks ago, there's one of the hottest chefs out there. His name's Evan Funky. And he has Felix in LA, and then he has Mother Wolf in Vegas, and he just opened one in Miami. His first restaurant, he went out of business. And they asked him why he went out of business. He says, I had no idea about the financials. And then I don't know if you've heard of Jose Andres.
Yeah, the name sounds familiar.
He did a podcast, 2 months ago, and they said, what's the most important thing that a new restaurateur should know? And first thing out of his mouth was, you got to know the financials. I don't care how good you could cook. I don't know how good, and that's where I don't think people put enough emphasis.
I agree.
It's a business. You have to run it like a business.
Yeah, I agree. Good stuff. Okay. Hey, Geordy, this was awesome. I love what you're doing. I'm so honored that you shared your story with me. And then this product sounds awesome. I will put in the show notes at thinktyler.com. FobeSoft.com is the name of your website.
Right.
Is there anywhere if people wanted to reach out to you other than FobeSoft, anywhere else?
It's GEO at FobeSoft.com. GEO, not Geordy, the whole word. It's just GEO at FobeSoft.com.
That's your email address.
Yeah. And my phone number is 904-813-5294.
Okay, if I put this also in the show notes?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks for being on the show. I'd love to have you maybe again in the future. Keep up to date in terms of how things are going. Thanks for your time, okay?
All right. Great, Tyler. Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Think Business with Tyler. But we have plenty more resources to help you in your pursuit of business excellence on our website at thinktyler.com. If you'd like to be featured in a future episode of the show, feel free to reach out to us on social media at think_Tyler. We look forward to helping you think life, think success, and think business.
Electricast.